Welcome to Lesson 2 of Section 2 of the BJCP training program for Brewers Anonymous. We're continuing looking at exams, ranks, and points. I will say that this particular lesson is not really covering things that are on the exam. It's a look at what the exam is. So if you're not really interested in looking or watching, I should say, videos that aren't covering direct information on the exams, you can skip this. I do recommend watching it because this exam is a very big exam. It's very extensive. It's a lot harder than people tend to think it is. And this will at least let you know what to expect in terms of how the exam is structured, some tips on actually taking the online exam, as well as laying out exactly what is on the exam as far as these subjects go. So let's go on and get more into that right now. So the entrance exam in detail. Said this before, it is a 60-minute online exam that is comprised of 180 questions. There's 3 types of questions in this exam. There's 112 true or false questions, 44 multiple choice questions, and 24 multiple answer questions. That's where you're given a question and you can select more than one answer. These are arguably the hardest questions, at least in my opinion, because it's very easy to miss one. Also, very easy to add one that sounds correct but isn't completely correct and making it a wrong answer. Each exam is built from a large pool of questions. No version of this exam is 100% exactly the same, and the entire pool of these questions aren't published anywhere, with the exception of a small amount of the true or false questions, which we'll get into here shortly. They take this exam and their questions very seriously, and they do look for any site that might have published some of their questions. That's why this course will not use any of their unpublished questions. We'll have questions that cover the same subject in the same manner that they do, and we'll make them true or false, multiple choice, or multiple answer, but they won't be any of the exact copy of the questions that comes from their pool, at least not intentionally. There is a chance that we might get one pretty close by accident, but again, that would be purely accidental. So we are not able and would not give you the exact questions that are on this exam. As mentioned in the previous video, this exam must be passed before continuing on to any of the program, particularly the judging exam. So we do have the details on how the questions are broken down, starting with the true or false questions. Of those 112, there are 20 questions specifically about the BJCP programs and ethics, and that is the pool of questions that they do publish. Again, we'll be getting to that very shortly. There are 32 true or false questions specifically asked about beer styles. There's also 24 true or false questions that are going to compare styles to each other. 24 questions on beer characteristics. And finally, to round out that entire pool, you're going to have 12 true or false questions about process and ingredients. For the multiple choice question, there will be 16 beer style questions, 8 mixed style comparison questions, 12 beer characteristic style questions, and 8 process and ingredients questions. For the multiple answer questions, I do have some good news about this difficult type of question. It is the least amount of questions on here. It's 24 split into 12 mixed style comparison questions and 12 process and ingredients questions. One thing I didn't mention before about the multiple answer, there is no partial credit for this. If you mark 2 of the 3 correct answers, you do not get a point for that question. You have to get all the answers they're looking for. So here's everything we just discussed in one screen to take a look at. We know the subjects of the questions you're going to get. We know the number of questions we're going to get. We just don't know specifically which each of those questions are going to be. But we're going to prepare ourselves best we can to have the answer ready, or at least be able to get it quickly. So let's talk a little bit more about the questions and the subjects themselves. And for some of these, let's look at some examples. Starting with those BJCP program ethics and true or false questions. Those 20 questions, they come from a pool of 124 questions that are all published in the BJCP Beer Exam Study Guide. And if you don't have that, go to the bottom of this video and click on the Exercise Files tab, and there will be a button to download these questions specifically. I don't have the entire study guide on that link, just the questions. Now, fair warning to this. While they're all pulled from the same 124 question list, sometimes they're altered to make what was a true statement false and vice versa. So your best course of action, in my opinion, is to understand what that question is about. Not that this question, you don't memorize the first 6 words and then identify the question and know that it's true or false. that might not help you. You need to understand the entire statement that's being made in the question. That way, if it's altered or changed when it gets to your exam, you'll know whether or not it's written as a true or false statement. In the subject of beer styles, here's an example of a true or false question you might see. True or false, a corn-like aroma is appropriate for an American lager. That is true. It says almost that word for word in the beer style guidelines. For a multiple choice question, here's another example. An appropriate base malt combination for a Weiss beer is A. Maris Otter and Munich malt, B. Pilsner malt and wheat, C. Pale malt and Victory malt, or D. Pilsner and pale malt. And the answer to this question is B. Pilsner malt and wheat. An example of the mixed style questions. What common characteristics do a Munich, Dunkel, and Doppelbock have in common? And our choices are A. IBU range within 18 to 26 IBUs. B. Typically use Pilsner malt as a base malt. C. ABV typically under 6%. D. Have little to no multi-sweet character. E. Both can be medium-bodied. And the answer to this question is A, B, and E. Now, C is true for a Munich Dunkel, but it's not for a Dunkelbock. So there's kind of the gotcha there on that one. And D is just completely untrue for both of these categories. Now, I will say I do have these listed A, B, C, and D. That was for ease of presentation use. When you go to take this test, there'll be check boxes. So you just check off the ones that are the correct answer on the exam. Going into the subject of beer characteristics, the true or false question example could be a plastic or elastic bandage type of flavor is caused by esters. That's false. That's a more of a phenolic type flaw or issue in the brewing or even packaging process. Multiple choice question example. Which of the following would describe a full-bodied beer? A, watery, B, flabby, C, thin, or D, chewy? In this case, D would be the most appropriate answer, chewy. In the subject of brewing process, a true or false question could be, true or false, the Munich Helles style is typically fermented with a lager yeast strain? True. The key word there is typically. We all know rules in brewing have been broken, have been proven to work without traditional methods. But when it comes to this exam, the focus is on traditional methods and typical accepted, I guess I say, maybe not even accepted, but the typical method, the historic standard everything was built on. Not quite sure which words best describe this, but I think you get the idea. If you don't, just reach out and I'll try to better explain what I'm saying here. A multiple choice question for brewing process could be a typical mashing temperature for a late body beer is A, 148 degrees Fahrenheit, B, 155 degrees Fahrenheit, C, 160 degrees Fahrenheit, or D, 178 degrees Fahrenheit. And the best answer to this question would be A, 148 degrees Fahrenheit. A multiple answer example for the subject of brewing process. Which are the most important practices in brewing beer? A, proper weather conditions. B, a thorough sanitization process. C, fermentation temperature control. D, using the most current and advanced equipment available. E, only using steel and glass equipment. And the best answers to this question are B and C. All right, now for the exam itself, here's some things that are good to know going into the exam. You don't necessarily need to know them, but knowing them going into it might give you a little bit of help getting through the exam a little easier than going into it blind. First, there are 5 questions per screen. If you're taking this on a small screen like a laptop or a tablet, I'm not sure the tablet's possible, so don't quote me on that, but a laptop would be a smaller screen than most desktops. Make sure you're scrolling down so you're getting all your questions. You don't want to leave any questions unanswered, even if it's an educated guess or even a shot in the dark. That's way better chance of getting it right than completely skipping the question. There is a small star with the word mark next to every question. These are very useful. If you're not sure about your answer, or if you just completely have no idea of this, if you mark that, it's going to tag it as a question you want to come back to, and there will be a final screen before you submit this, your exam, or at least your attempt at the exam, and you'll be able to click on the number of that question and go directly to it and save yourself some time. This is really useful when you're kind of banking time. Each question has an average of 20 seconds to answer. Some questions you're going to answer within a few seconds. Some you might take a little more than 20 seconds. But if you can mark the questions you really don't know the answer to and get through the ones you do, you'll have a larger pool of time to search for those questions because we haven't gone to this yet, but this is open book. So use that feature to your advantage. That's exactly what it's there for. Like I just said, before the final submission, all questions will be displayed on one summary screen, and there's some important characteristics to the summary screen that will help you if you know going into it. First, anything that's green, you'll see the numbers. If the numbers are green, you've answered that question. If they're red, there's no answer given to this question. So you may have skipped it on purpose or maybe inadvertently. So make sure you get those red questions answered. Again, a shot in the dark is going to give you a better chance of getting a right answer and more points than completely skipping it. Anything with an asterisk next to it, these are the ones that you starred. So if you need, even if they're green and already have an answer, but you weren't sure about the answer and you have a little bit more time to really look at the questions and maybe look something up, those are indicated on the screen as well. And that star can be next to a green or red question. So it doesn't need to be one or the other. The best thing, in my opinion, about the summary screen is that you can click on that number and return to the question. You don't need to hit the back arrow on your browser however many times to get to that question. So you click on that, it jumps right to the question on that screen. And along with that, once you've jumped to that screen, if you want to get back to the summary screen to get to the next question you starred or left red, there is a hyperlink on the bottom of every question screen to this summary screen. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind because that could save you so much time beyond answering the questions if you need to go back and revisit anything that you put in. So I've said this before, it is open book, and that is any form of reference, a physical book, a digital book, the 2021 beer style guidelines, the internet. There is a tool on Beer Syndicate called the Compare-O-Matic. I believe it was built after the 2015 guidelines, but that's still very close to 2021 if you want to have that on your screen when you take this test. You do need to sign up for an account on that. I know some people get worried about that, but I've signed up for it with my everyday email, and I don't think I've ever gotten a single email from them since signing up. So I'm not going to claim that it's safe because I don't know them, but I'm just saying I've not been spammed. Of course, if you're of the ilk of being wary about that, you most likely have burner accounts to take care of this. So do with that information what you will. There's a 60-minute time limit. We said that several times as well. And once that timer starts, it does not stop. It does not pause. The only time it stops is when 60 minutes run out. So make sure when you take this exam, you have that full hour free, maybe even a full hour and then some to sit down and prepare, and then just have that extra buffer at the end. Because once you launch, as I said, the clock is running. That averages 220 seconds per questions. We said that before. That may sound like a lot of time on the surface, but try to find the answer to something that you have no idea what the answer is. 20 seconds will go by incredibly fast. So having an idea of what that answer might be really helps cut down the research time that you need to find that answer if you need it. Even knowing what that question has to do with, what the subject is, or where that answer can be found is going to save you so much more time than hitting a question that you don't have any idea what the answer could be. And that is exactly what this course is all about, getting you into that position. To end the exam, it does end by clicking the submit button at the bottom of the screen or when time runs out. My suggestion, having taken the exam, is that if for some reason you have several minutes left at the end of the exam, don't submit. Save those minutes, even if you don't go back and look at any of the questions. As you're sitting there kind of reviewing how everything went in your head, something might jump out at you that you want to go back and revise. So I would say let the timer run out on this. It's 60 minutes. It's not a whole lot of time. If you have extra time, take advantage of that. Don't give it back. Let it run out just in case. That's really what it comes down to. The results are pass-fail. I can tell you that a scoring percentage is 64%. They do have that in their literature and in their exam prep documents, but you will not know pass or fail how low or high your score is. You're just going to be told that you pass or fail. After the exam, you're sent an email that tells you these subjects that your pass rate was below 64%. You can still pass this with not getting every subject above 64%. It's an average. So I'm not sure, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how helpful this is if you pass the exam because it's pass-fail. It's not like you can go back and get a better grade. And a lot of this doesn't necessarily transfer to the judging exam. But I will say if you did not pass it, then it's a very valuable email. I suppose in the end, it's best to send it to everybody. That way, anyone that needs that information or wants that information has it. So just kind of a conversation piece there in those last comments. That 64% is getting 116 out of the 180 correct. Having said that, you should go into this exam getting 20 answers right off the bat, because those are the 20 BJCP program ethics true or false questions that are already published in the study guide. That only leaves 96 questions to get correct to pass this exam. Once you do pass this exam, there's another countdown starting, and that is in 1 calendar year, you need to take your judging exam. When you do pass, you will be emailed a certificate that looks much like the one on the screen right now. In that email is also going to be a link to re-download another copy of this. Save all of that. Print out a copy of this, save it, save that email, and bookmark that link, because you're going to need to provide this to the judging coordinator the exam coordinator of the judging exam. Now, when they'll ask for it, that could vary. At the very latest, obviously, you will need a copy of this the day of that exam. So it might even be a good idea to plan on taking a physical printed out copy with you the day of the exam, just in case something happened to one you might have provided earlier. Some coordinators may ask for it a little early, maybe an email copy or even mail a physical copy. There might even be a circumstance where you've reserved a seat for a judging exam, but you haven't actually taken and passed this entrance exam yet. Just make sure you make that clear that you have not only every intention of passing the entrance exam before the judging exam, but you do understand that you need to pass and have this certificate before then. Really, the bottom line here is do not delete anything in any form of a copy of this until you've sat down and finished your judging exam. Then you can do whatever you want with it. So here's a few more exam details. There are multiple languages supported in the exam. It supports English, Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, and simplified Chinese. There is a cost for the exam. It's $10 for a single attempt, but there is a $20 3-for-2 option. So that's 3 attempts total. This is the one I always suggest to everybody. There have been a large portion of people that don't pass on their first attempt. That's not entirely true for everybody, though. Some people do. I think having 2 more tries already paid for and on deck on that first exam alleviates a lot of pressure off of you on that first attempt. You know, if you don't pass, you have 2 more tries, and you're going to find out what you need to focus on later. Whereas with the one, your mindset, possibly partially subconsciously, may be, I need to get this correct now, and you're putting yourself under some pressure that could be alleviated by getting that 3-for-2 option. I got the 3-for-2 option, and I passed on my first attempt. But with that, I don't feel like I wasted my money at all. I think paying that extra $10 really took a lot of pressure off my mind, whether I knew it or not, for passing the exam that first attempt. I should also note that this is a 3 attempts per user account. You can't get 3 people in on it, pay $20 and spread it out against 3 different accounts. It will only apply to the one account that purchases that 3-for-2 option. And where do you take the exam? Well, you take it at bjcp.coursewebs.com. You can sign up anytime. You're going to need an account to take the exam, and you can sign up now and then take the exam later. I think it was like 2 years now that I didn't even have this in my notes, but I think it was like 2 years between me signing up and actually purchasing the exam attempt before I did. And I did that because there is a practice exam available. It's only 20 questions. I have my opinions on whether or not this is much of a good representation of the exam you're going to take with only 20 questions, a limited amount of time, but it's better than nothing. And it is their questions. I'm not sure. I do not believe these questions are repeated in their actual example, but they're written by the same people that came up with the exam. So it's the same style and the same verbiage, and gives you some idea of what to expect. So on that subject, practice exams of our own will be coming soon to this training program. Again, we cannot publish the BJCP exam questions. I don't even know them anymore at this point. They're going to be original questions from us, but they're going to be in the same style and cover the same subject matter that the BJCP entrance exam covers, so that you're better prepared going into that exam. Now, a quick overview of what follows that, the BJCP beer judging examination. We're actually going to take a closer look at that in the next lesson, but as kind of a preparation for that, this is the exam where you judge beer. There are 6 beers judged in 90 minutes. And as I said, I think more than once in this lesson, it's supposed to be taken 1 year after passing the entrance exam. Following that, if you so choose to pursue more advanced ranks in the BJCP, is the BJCP Judge Written Proficiency Examination. This is required for national rank and above. You must score an 80 or above on your judging exam to take this written exam. It consists of 20 true or false questions and 5 essay questions. And that is the last we're going to talk about the written exam, because we don't have any more details to cover, and it's not something we're preparing for. But we are going to talk some more about the judging exam in the next lesson, so let's move on to that.